Last night we did a poll on this show to see who people would vote for. There was over 1,000 votes. You were in first place at 65%. And right behind you is RFK Jr. at 31%. And I'm curious, this got me to thinking, actually, there is some overlap between you and RFK Jr. in reference to the policies that you support. Do you think you would ever be interested in having some type of collaboration with him, maybe on like an anti-war issue, so to speak?
Well, we've already had many collaborations. He and his wonderful family have always been so kind, reached out to me. We used to meet there, Las Vegas. We used to have this wonderful gathering of lawyers concerned about environmental racism and so forth. We were on panels together. I have great love and respect for the brother in his own way. I mean, I was disappointed to see him backing down so quickly. I thought he was even spineless the way he backed away from Brother Roger Waters. I said, come on, Brother Kennedy. Now. Hey, Patricia Sullivan's wonderful book on RFK. It's a wonderful book. RFK at the very end, he's trying to be courageous. He'd already put the FBI on Martin, wrong as he can be, but he's trying to bounce back. And he was bouncing back. I say, RFK Jr., you got to take a stand in the face of truth. Don't let these folk tell you anti-Semitic or somehow you downplaying the plight and predicament of Jewish brothers and sisters. You can love Jewish brothers and sisters and come to their defense, and very much like me say, Jewish security is crucial, indispensable. It's a requisite for any movement forward. But that Jewish security must go hand in hand with Palestinian dignity, with Palestinian justice. It is not either or. So when I saw him in the parade, I said, oh, Lord, here come these Democratic Party politicians again. They're confusing improvisation, which is a species of practical wisdom, but it's still grounded in courage, with opportunism. And opportunism is finding out what you believe after somebody puts pressure on you and pushes you in a certain direction. It's the difference between the thermometer and a thermostat. If you're just going to check and see what the climate of opinion is and simply reflect it, rather than be a thermostat and shape it, then you're not really ready to be the kind of leader for poor and working people that we want. So I've got much to learn from the brother. He's a brilliant brother. We've got a lot of overlap. But I think when you're running for president, you can't let these lobbies, I don't care what they are tied, you can't let these lobbies dictate your judgment. Can you imagine a jazz musician sitting there getting ready to play his trumpet and got to check with somebody else about which notes? Hey, no, get off the stage. Go back home and work on your scales. You know what I mean? That's the standard. That's the standard. So yes, I think I can work very much with my dear brother, RFK Jr. And his family is one that I have always had a fondness for, especially given the suffering, and so on. But when I've seen that, and I haven't heard him really come out for Medicare for all. I mean, there's a number of things that I think I would put pressure on him. But he's got the right orientation in regard to domestic policy. Oh, there's no doubt about that. And he's done a wonderful job as a lawyer. He really has. He's been a force for good as a lawyer dealing with environmental racism.
Well said. I want to ask you about this statement in reference to Ron DeSantis. So some people are, just let you know, some people are criticizing this, and I want to get your opinion, or if you could explain to people what you meant by your statement here. In this article, it says DeSantis revolutionary defense of the classics. And so this was written by you and Jeremy Tate, May 2023. And it's this statement here where it says, that's why Mr. DeSantis' support of classic education has universal merit that transcends partisanship. Education based on values, logic, and discipline isn't Republican, it's timeless. I want to give you the opportunity to explain to people what you mean by that, because some people are criticizing this because of Ron DeSantis' recent actions in reference to education and censorship.
No, I appreciate you giving me that opportunity, because you see, as a jazz man, I try to be very honest and candid about particular issues that I work on and find overlap with folk who I have deep disagreements with. And so Brother Jeremy Tate and I have been working on trying to make sure that classical education, by classical education, I mean from Socrates to Toni Morrison. I mean from Sophocles to James Baldwin. I'm talking about the most powerful formulations of what it means to be human. From Timbuktu to Oxford to Howard to Morehouse to the Sorbonne. Attempts of human beings to come to terms with all of the issues of death and dread and despair and disappointment. And I've seen the dumbing down of education. So what happens is, in those contexts, I do in fact find myself with some deeply conservative folk. And I try to tell them, hey, let's tell the truth now. Let's be honest. When Martin Luther King Jr. is in that Birmingham jail talking about Socrates, he is understanding the relation of Socrates, who also died of the hemlock after being in jail, to his situation. And so when it comes to DeSantis, that's the 2% of the time I would agree with him, because he indeed brought in the classic education test to accent that classical education. I have a deep commitment to classical education to make sure we sustain the highest levels. And it's always cuts across cultures, cuts across civilizations. It's African, it's indigenous peoples, it's Latin American, it's European, it's Asian, and so forth. 98% of the time, he's a xenophobe. He's a cowardly manipulator of various cultural wars. And he himself, he's Ivy League trained and acting like he comes out of some proletarian context or something. I said, wait a minute, brother DeSantis, why don't you be honest with yourself? But he's running for president. He learned much from Trump, and Trump has just helped gangsterize the whole terrain. It was already corrupt, but he's now gangsterized it in that way. And so DeSantis feels as if he has to play that role. And so 98% of the time, I have deep disagreements. Now, I must say the title, I think, was ridiculous. I didn't choose the title. That was the Wall Street Journal. Brother Jeremy called me up and said he didn't like the title either. But we're always working on classical education. Same is true with my dear brother, Robbie George, where I have very deep disagreements. And yet at the same time, I got a deep love for the brother. And so we work together on a variety of issues. And then we fight on a whole host of other issues as well. And, I don't mind being pushed against the wall by folk who think I need to be all on their side. Well, see, I don't proceed like that. I don't proceed. It's like looking at Clarence Thomas, and I agree with him about 99% of the time. But when I see Clarence Thomas, I still see a beautiful black man aesthetically. He reminds me of my grandfather. You see, a beautiful black man can be a force against justice, against freedom, as I understand it. So I have profound disagreements with him. We fight. I've never fought physically or nothing, you see. But when I see him, I don't first see just all of the ugly things associated with his policies. I can still stay in contact with his humanity, even as I know he's my political foe and my ideological enemy. And that's just how I proceed. That's how I choose to be in the world. Everybody doesn't have to do that, Everybody doesn't have to do that. But that's just how I choose to be. That's the kind of horn I'm blowing. Or like Mary Lou Williams, that's the kind of piano I'm playing. And I'm going to go down like that. You know what I mean? I'm going to go down like that. That's how I was raised by Irene and Clifton and Shiloh Baptist Church and the Panther Party. I've never remembered the Panther Party because I'm revolutionary Christian. They atheistic and things. So we used to have our wonderful discussions about religion as opium of the people and the way in which they had a preacher every week who was selling out the people. And they were right. Many of those preachers did. Ain't no doubt about that. I said, why don't you get some lawyers and pharmacists and doctors up there? No, we're going to focus on the preachers because they're so important in our community. And then what happens? Well, when they had the breakfast program, they go to the black churches. Why? Because there's a prophetic slice of the black church that's in solidarity with the Panthers. I said, yes, go to St. Augustine. Go to Allen Temple, J. Alfred Smith, who was Huey Newton's pastor. And who was Huey Newton's father? Reverend Walter Newton, pastor of Bethel Baptist Church, Monroe, Louisiana. Baddest black man in the city. Police wouldn't touch him. His son, just like him. Ooh, interesting. Very fascinating. The very source of your strength can come out of an institution you have deep disagreements with in terms of its beliefs. That's exactly right. Very much so.
You're better than me, Dr. West. When I look at Clarence Thomas, I see Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks.
I can understand because and there's an element of strong element of truth in that. But you can imagine also when you see Clarence Thomas, if he looks exactly like your uncle, you say, "Ooh, I got to really distinguish between Uncle Johnny and old Uncle Remus Clarence because what his face and his the way he proceeds is something that has a resonance within my own cultural formation." See? Even though politically and ideologically I'm going at him tooth and nail, but you see the point I'm making. It's a matter of finding something that allows you to stay in contact with the humanity of others, so that it leaves you open to some sense of possibility, so that you're never ever feeling as if you're fatalistic about anybody. You see, if Elijah Muhammad were fatalistic about Malcolm and Malcolm little remained the gangster that he was, we never would have had Malcolm X. Elijah loved him into Malcolm X, and then he had to outgrow Elijah and continue to become one of the greatest freedom fighters of the 20th century. You see what I mean? But if we gave up on Malcolm Little, no Malcolm X, well, we need Malcolm. I can't conceive of myself without Malcolm X. No, I don't exist. That's like trying to conceive of myself without Fannie Lou Hamer. I can just hear this little light of mine and Fannie Lou singing all the time. They try to beat her down and she just keep on coming back with all of her style and her smile and her song. Yes, that's my kind of human being and freedom fighter.